there, underwear fans. This is Underwear Guy with a review of the Underoos reissued adult underwear set. For a little bit of history, back in the late 70s, early 80s, Fruit of the Loom pulled together a bunch of different popular licenses for kids' characters, including Transformers, G.I. Joes, basically any of those Saturday morning cartoon staples. And they advertised these for both boys and girls as a fun way to wear underwear. You could dress up as your favorite character and just have a lot of fun. Those obviously went away in the 90s and 2000s, but then Fruit of the Loom sold the rights for the Underoos brand to another company, and that company reissued them, this time for adults. And basically enough time had passed between the 80s to now so that it was more of a fun nostalgia item. But even if you're not familiar with the history, there's still a really neat and kind of fun, different type of way of looking and wearing underwear, and the designs are obviously something that I think anyone can enjoy, adults or kids. These are sold exclusively through Hot Topic. You can get them in their stores, although when I've gone to Hot Topic stores, I often find there's only like one or two. And really the best way to get these is online on hottopic.com. They often go on sale, but the normal list price is $24.50. But honestly, I have almost always been able to find some sort of sale, either a discount, a coupon, or buy one, get one for $1. So it's pretty rare that you're gonna have to spend the full $24.50 for each one. These were an item that I got recently for a significant discount. I think it was like 20% off, and I bought a bunch of them. Right now, they have two different license types, including DC comic book characters and Star Wars characters. This is obviously the Luke Skywalker Star Wars character one. There are currently a couple others in the men's, which include the Boba Fett, as well as a Darth Vader. And I'll show you some of the product photos, of course. They are available in small, medium, large, and extra large. When you're buying them, it's a box set, so if you buy medium for the underwear, you're getting a medium in the t-shirt as well. I'll talk more about the fit and how that works out. These are now made in China, for those of you who are curious. Something I'd like to talk about that I don't normally talk about is the packaging for this item. Typically, underwear is sold online in many cases, and because it's cheaper to ship something without a big box, they usually put it in a Ziploc style plastic bag. This item being more of a retail play, and also the nostalgia factor is pretty big, they used these nice large graphic boxes, which are a lightweight cardboard. They're meant to be put on hangers in the retail environment and catch your eye. There's obviously this great mix of old school Underoos typography for the logo, and then you have the character name and the license logo, and of course you have the size and the gender. Then on the back you have these really cool graphics showing all the callouts, like the soft stretch fabric, the slim fit, and you have a really helpful size chart. So again, there you see it's a normal North America sizing, the medium 32 to 34 inch waist on the underwear, and then a 41 inch chest roughly. You have the wash and care information, and just all the other fun callouts about the history of Underoos. The packaging itself is almost like a collector's item, and I think that's half the fun of it. You can see that the packaging repeats the same design and style for the other ones. This is the Boba Fett version, and then down here I also have the Darth Vader one, which is a little bit different. This one is less like a costume design and more of just a graphic with the Darth Vader picture on the front of the t-shirt and the blue underwear with the black waistband. These are the three that I'm aware of for the Star Wars version. The DC Comics ones have Superman, Batman, and Captain America, which is Marvel. Focusing on the brief for the moment, the material blend is a 95% cotton, 5% spandex, unlike the shirt, which is 100% cotton. You actually get quite a bit of stretch because of that spandex blend, and you get that in both directions, so it ends up being quite comfortable, fairly soft to the feel. I will admit I haven't washed and worn these a whole lot, so the long-term fabric will probably pile a little bit. You can kind of see that I think this fabric might be prone to that. It's a fairly nice material. I'm not sure it's the most premium. Given this price point, I'm not surprised, but it's actually really very wearable, very comfortable. I give it pretty high marks in general in terms of the blend and the stretch. It's a medium weight, so this is fairly lightweight, but it still has pretty good coverage, meaning it's opaque. You're not going to see through it. We can do a little test here, and really there's very little that you're going to see through. I would say it offers average breathability, average stretch, and decent sweat wicking. It's not a performance fabric, so it's not designed obviously for heavy workouts or anything of that nature. Talking about the fit, so there isn't really a pouch design on these briefs. They are classic style flat front, so you're not going to get any kind of accentuation, lift, or enhancement. You just really don't expect that out of this style. It's a retro brief style, and there's no real consideration played towards that. Even though it is flat front though, the 95% cotton, 5% spandex blend does at least give you a nice amount of room and stretch so that you won't have any unnecessary compression or uncomfortable feeling when you wear this. It actually gives you enough room to feel okay for daily wear. So as I mentioned, when you buy a medium, you're buying a medium in both the brief and the t-shirt. The brief runs roughly true to size. I found it fairly comfortable and didn't have any area that was tight or pinching or too loose, so it's pretty good. North America average range being a medium 32, 34 type, I think that fits pretty well. The t-shirt is interesting because typically sometimes these t-shirts can run really large or a little bit too small, and this actually falls, I think, right in that perfect average range. It felt maybe just a little bit big, but overall for me, my build is a little bit smaller, so I actually liked the fact that this felt like an athletic fit t-shirt. Not too tight, but I think also with the 100% cotton, it's going to shrink some, so by then it's going to fit really nicely. But do be aware, yes, it isn't a super loose shirt. It's a little bit slimmer cut than you might have with some more typical North America sizing. The rise on the waist, maybe under old school standards, this might have been considered medium rise, roughly. It's definitely not low rise. I think depending by today's standards, where you have a lot more low rise underwear, this might be considered almost a full rise now. That's partly personal taste, but it's fairly full coverage on the front and obviously very full coverage on the back. There is elastic covering on the leg bands, which is very comfortable, and they stretch a lot, but they still keep their shape, and that's really nice. The elastic on the waistband itself has a nice smooth finish. It's a microfiber elastic, not like those old school elastic waistbands that were rough. This is really smooth. So it's very comfortable, and again, it stretches really nicely on the waistband. In terms of design and style, personality-wise, I think this is pretty clearly a modest item. Again, as I mentioned, it's fairly full coverage, and the material is opaque. It's not going to be see-through. I would recommend that, like you would guess, this is great for sleepwear, for lounging. It's great for daily wear to some respects, depending on your kind of personality, being maybe more fun and playful. It could even be for a fun night out, maybe not necessarily a sexy fun night out, but it's still going to be great to wear because it has good coverage and it's decently durable. In terms of the overall design, I think the colors are really nicely saturated, very even. The retro style with the functional front fly and the contrast binding is really nice. Again, this is a fully functional dual layer fly, just like all that old school underwear that you've probably seen or maybe even worn before. The t-shirts have a lot of fun designs. I'm going to pull out the matching Star Wars Luke Skywalker t-shirt here. This is a design that is done with the traditional silk screen or screen printing process. I'm not actually sure if it's silk screening these days. The material here is definitely going to wear out. It's something that I think you just have to accept, because when you do these kinds of somewhat cheaper methods, I'm sure if I were to stretch this really hard, this plastic would start to crack and break, and that's typical. especially also as you see that this is washed and worn in the machine washer several times, this is going to fade. In a way, it's kind of the charm of this kind of item. It's not really meant to be this perfect, long-lasting museum quality item. It's $24.50 for a t-shirt and underwear, so I think you kind of have to expect that. You can see on the t-shirt there is a block of information for the branding, the size, and the same thing is printed on the underwear. This is a little bit different in that the printing here is thinner in terms of the ink coverage, and it's still stretchable. It will crack and break over time, I'm sure, just like anything does when it's printed on fabric like this. It's a little large, maybe larger than it needs to be, and of course some sort of fabric tag would be nice, especially usually you see a fabric tag covering the seam in the back of the elastic waistband. But overall, I would say it doesn't interfere with the fit or the finish, and it's actually kind of a neat part of the retro feel to have this big, bold graphic treatment. In terms of the overall value, I've mentioned a couple times at $24.50 or often less. This is a really good value. I would call it affordable. Some might even say thrifty, particularly if you get it on sale, considering you're combining not just the underwear but the top as well. If there's one area that I have a pretty strong criticism, it's definitely the construction and the quality here. This was a pretty big letdown in terms of the manufacturing quality. The material, as I mentioned, is nice. That feels fairly high quality, but there's just a lot of flaws in how this was constructed. You'll see in the close-ups that the elastic stitching along the waistband in front has some flawed kind of bunching, where the material in the elastic waistband join wasn't held at the right tension, and therefore there's some rather unattractive looking wrinkles and bunching along the edge. The stitching, I'm going to turn this inside out so you can see. The stitching along the waistband is kind of rough. It's relatively straight, but there's definitely some unevenness along the line, and also very noticeable how rough the cut on the fabric edge is. You can see again more of the wrinkling over here, perhaps if in the close-ups you'll see it too. The other call out I have as a criticism on the construction is there were a lot of loose threads. This is pretty rare actually. I've very rarely encountered this kind of problem in underwear today. Even the cheaper brands like Life underwear from Walmart usually don't have this, but here there's a loose thread and it needs to be cut. There's also, I believe, some loose threads on the front even, which is somewhat unusual. So there is a large loose thread that just actually came off in my hand. Again, a major construction issue. There's also even some threads that are just kind of jammed in on the seam here. So that's where we go into the real downsides of this particular underwear item. It's just the overall construction quality is pretty poor for something that we're used to today's standards, even on the lower end being pretty decent. The t-shirt itself, if I look at it, I would say the construction on the t-shirt seems in a way almost a little bit better than the underwear item, because I don't see the same issues with the bunching on the seams on the neck or on the arms. There is definitely some loose threads on the arms, but it doesn't seem to be quite as bad as the underwear itself. Probably one of the bigger callouts I have that was, again, right out of the box, brand new, was that this item, this brief, had a hole right here in the back. And it's not a small hole, it's actually pretty large, just straight out of the box. So that was a pretty major disappointment for me. I was very frustrated to see that, because as much as, yes, I didn't spend a whole lot of money on this, you don't want to get something that already has a big hole in it when it's brand new. I looked at the other pairs of underwear because I bought all the Star Wars ones, all three of them. The other ones did not have something as severe as this hole. They certainly did have all the same kinds of construction issues. So I probably would say this was a hopefully rarer situation with that manufacturing flaw, but I can't say. And therefore I would advise you, when you buy these, one, look at them closely. You might be able to return this. At this point, I don't feel like bothering to return it. It's more trouble than it's worth for what I paid. but just be aware you are not necessarily getting the highest quality controlled item when you buy these. In terms of wash and care, so according to the official information, you can machine wash it with cold water and then put it in a machine dryer on low. You obviously don't want to iron anything, particularly the t-shirt, because you'll melt that nice graphic that's printed on top. I do think you'll get some shrinkage on the shirt more noticeable than on the briefs, because the briefs at least have that 5% spandex if you use a high heat on the dryer. And at that, even though I haven't washed these, I'm pretty sure the color will probably fade if you use a really strong detergent, so you do want to be aware of that as well. In terms of my overall feelings about this item, I am really going to give it winning points in terms of the overall look and feel, the design, and just the fun factor. It's huge. I really loved that aspect of this item. The construction is my biggest drawback and the thing that makes me hesitant from giving some huge recommendation, only because I was pretty disappointed with that. I believe you will probably have less problems in terms of this major hole issue, so that you shouldn't have to worry about. As long as you go into buying this with the expectation that you're going to have construction issues, but not necessarily to the level that's unwearable, I think you'll be okay. Just don't go into this buying the set thinking you're getting a high-end premium line. I think most of you are going to use common sense and understand that given the price point. And the biggest draw is really the fun factor. Until next time, this is Underwear Guy, and I hope you enjoy this review. Please keep watching out for more and check out my website when you have time at mensunderwearguy.com.